The first time I noticed something was off, my mother was humming. That in itself wasn't unusual. Claire had always been the kind of woman who filled silence with song. Her voice soft but deliberate, like she was daring the world to interrupt her. But this time the melody was different. Lighter. Almost girlish. And when I followed the sound into the kitchen, I found her standing by the window, her fingers absently tracing the edge of her wineglass, her gaze fixed somewhere beyond our backyard fence. "Mom!" called, leaning against the doorframe. She startled, turning with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Lucas, I didn't hear you come in." I nodded toward the window. "What's so interesting out there?" Her cheeks flushed, just for a second, before she waved a dismissive hand. "Just watching the sunset." Lie. The sun had set an hour ago. I should have let it go. But that night as I lay in bed, the image of her lingered. The way her hips had swayed slightly as she turned, the way her blouse dipped just low enough to be deliberate. My mother had always been beautiful, but this was different. This was calculated. The next morning I caught her again. This time she was at the front door, chatting with Mr. Dawson from across the street. He was older than her by at least a decade, a divorcee with salt and pepper hair and a voice that carried like he was always on stage. I'd never paid him much attention before, but now I watched the way his eyes flickered over her, the way his thumb brushed her wrist when she handed him a misplaced package. "You two seem friendly," I remarked after he left. Claire busied herself with rearranging the mail. "He's just a neighbor, Lucas. Neighbors don't usually stare at each other like that." She froze, then exhaled sharply. "Don't be ridiculous." But I wasn't. And when she slipped into a sundress that clung too tightly the following afternoon, I followed her. She didn't go far. Just next door to Mr. Dawson's sprawling colonial, its porch light flickering like a bad omen. I lingered by the hedges, heart pounding, as she knocked once before letting herself in. No hesitation. No guilt. An hour passed. Then two. When she finally emerged, her hair was tousled, her lips swollen. She paused on the doorstep, smoothing her dress with trembling hands before walking home like nothing had happened. I waited until she was inside before stepping out of the shadows. My hands clenched at my sides, anger and betrayal warring in my chest. But beneath it all was something worse. Curiosity. Because if she could lie this easily, how much else had I missed? That night, I pretended to be asleep when she checked on me. Her fingers brushed my hair, her perfume, something new, something floral and unfamiliar, lingering long after she left. Downstairs, the front door creaked open. My father was home. And just like that, the illusion snapped back into place. I spent the next 3 days watching her like a detective building a case. Claire moved through the house with practiced ease, laughing at my father's jokes, kissing his cheek before he left for work, all while her fingers tapped restless rhythms against the countertop, her gaze drifting toward the window whenever a car passed. She was careful but not careful enough. I caught the way her breath hitched when her phone buzzed, the way she tucked it face down before I could glimpse the screen. On Thursday she slipped up. I was rummaging through the fridge when she hurried into the kitchen, her sundress fluttering like she'd dressed in a hurry. "Running errands," she announced, snatching her keys from the hook. "Need help?" I asked casual. Her smile was too bright. "Just grocery shopping. Boring stuff." But she didn't go to the grocery store. I tailed her in my beat-up sedan, hanging back just far enough to avoid notice. She took the long route, winding through side streets before pulling into the parking lot of the Willow Inn, a boutique hotel with velvet curtains and a reputation. My stomach twisted as she stepped inside, her heels clicking against the pavement with a confidence that felt like a betrayal. 20 minutes passed. Then an hour. I was about to leave when the door swung open again. Claire emerged, her cheeks flushed, her hair tousled in a way that needed no explanation. Behind her, Mr. Dawson adjusted his cufflinks. His mouth curved into a smirk that made my fists clench. They lingered by the entrance, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back, before she finally pulled away with a whispered promise. I ducked low in my seat, my pulse roaring in my ears. That night I confronted her. She was in the bath when I pushed open the door without knocking. Steam curled in the air between us, obscuring her startled expression for half a second before she recovered. "Lucas!" She yanked a towel over herself, her voice sharp. "What the hell?" I held up my phone, the photo I'd snapped of her and Dawson glaring on the screen. "Care to explain?" For a heartbeat she looked terrified. Then her face shuttered, her spine straightening as she met my gaze. "You followed me. You lied to me." The silence between us thickened, heavy with things neither of us wanted to say. Finally she exhaled, her shoulders slumping. "It's not what you think. Really." My laugh was brittle. "Because it looks like you're screwing our neighbor while Dad's at work." She flinched. What followed was a masterclass in deflection. She pleaded loneliness, blamed my father's long hours, even tried to spin it as a harmless fling, as if betrayal could ever be harmless. But beneath the excuses I heard the truth. She liked the way Dawson looked at her. Liked the danger of it. "You're going to stop," I said, my voice low. "Or I'll tell him." Her eyes flashed. "You wouldn't. Try me." We stared each other down, the air between us charged with a challenge neither could take back. Then abruptly she looked away. "Fine," she muttered. "It's over." But the way her fingers trembled as she twisted her wedding ring told me she was lying. The next morning, Dawson's car idled at the end of our street. I watched from my bedroom window as Claire took out the trash, her steps slowing as she neared the curb. She didn't look back at the house, didn't see me watching as she leaned into the passenger window, her laughter floating up to me like a taunt. She'd chosen her side. Now I had to choose mine. I gave her one last chance. When Claire returned from her trash run, I was waiting at the kitchen table, my father's favorite coffee mug, the one she'd bought him for their anniversary, turned deliberately toward her empty chair. She froze in the doorway, her grip tightening on her purse strap. "You said it was over," I said, my voice flat. She didn't bother denying it. Just set her keys down with a sigh, like I was an inconvenience. "Lucas, this isn't your business. It is when you're tearing this family apart." Her laugh was sharp, brittle. "Your father hasn't looked at me in years. Don't act like this is all on me." The deflection stung, but I pushed harder. "So that justifies it. You're just what owed this." Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or shame, but it vanished fast. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." She hesitated. Then quietly, "I feel alive when I'm with him." The admission hung between us, ugly and raw. I almost told my father that night. He came home exhausted, his tie loose, barely mustering a kiss to Claire's cheek before collapsing into his armchair. I studied him, the gray creeping into his temples, the way his wedding band dug into his finger after years of never taking it off, and imagined shattering his world with a single sentence. "Mom's sleeping with the neighbor." But then Claire handed him a beer without being asked, her fingers lingering just a second too long, and he smiled at her like she'd hung the moon. My throat closed. Cowardice won. I stayed silent. Dawson made the choice for me. 2 days later, I found him leaning against our fence, smirking as Claire laughed at something he'd said. They hadn't noticed me yet. His hand was on her waist, his thumb brushing the hem of her shirt, bold as hell, like he wanted to get caught. Then he saw me. His smirk deepened. Challenge. Claire followed his gaze, her smile dying when she registered my expression. "Lucas." I turned on my heel and walked away. The confrontation happened in the garage, where my father's tools lined the walls like witnesses. I threw the photo of them at the hotel onto the workbench. "Tell him or I will." Claire's face paled. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing." For the first time she looked scared. Not of me, of losing Dawson. "Please," she whispered. "Just wait." "Wait for what?" "For Dad to walk in on you." My voice cracked. "Jesus, Mom. Do you even love him anymore?" She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I told my father at breakfast. Claire wasn't there, she'd left early another errand. So it was just the two of us, the silence thick as I slid the photo across the table. He stared at it for a long time. Then quietly. How long? I don't know. He nodded, slow like he was working out a math problem. Then he stood, his chair scraping against the tile, and walked out. No yelling. No tears. It was gone. That was worse. Claire came home to pack bags. She stood in the foyer, her keys still in hand, as my father zipped his duffel. James. Don't, he said, not looking at her. Her breath hitched. It wasn't. Don't. The finality in his voice killed whatever lie she'd been about to spin. She crumpled then, her knees buckling as she gripped the doorframe. I'm sorry. He shouldered past her. Not yet, you're not. The door slammed. Dawson never came for her. She called him 3 times that night. He didn't pick up. By dawn, her tears had dried into something hollow. She sat at the kitchen island, her untouched coffee going cold, staring at the divorce papers my father's lawyer had already emailed. I wanted to feel vindicated. All I felt was sick.